Welcome everyone to today's webinar, How Healthy is Your Chart of Accounts? We're going to have a quick run through on all the pitfalls and issues that we see when clients try to, firstly, when they try to move finance system, but also when you've been using your current chart of accounts for a long period of time. Sometimes it's good to kind of take a step back and take a refresh and a new look at it as your business has grown and changed and morphed over time. Quick intro to myself. I'm Andrew Faulkner. I'm one of the sales team here at AccountsIQ. I come from the onboarding team prior to that, so I've seen both sides of this problem. And I'm joined today by the wonderful Sinéad Brennan, who heads up the onboarding team, has years and years of experience with our previous company, actually as a user of AccountsIQ, and then obviously dealing with the onboarding process, the implementation process, and all of that brings us as clients come into our product as well. So Sinéad, great to have you with us this morning. Do you want to flick onto the next slide there? Just a quick run through on what we're going to talk about today. So today's agenda, we're going to run through what does a chart of accounts look like, a strong one. What are the key indicators that your COA needs a bit of a rethink at this stage? What are the must-dos when you're redesigning your chart of accounts to support your business? And it's very important to look beyond the finance department when you're talking about doing major chart of accounts work. You need to involve the entire organization within that. Key features that AccountsIQ as a platform can help you with to maintain and assist with the build of your chart of accounts and the coding structure. So we're looking at our GL structure, intercompany eliminations, and also our business intelligence structure that sits off the back of all of that. And then lastly, enjoying just having a look through some of the reporting capabilities within the system itself. So we will actually take you in product at the end of this, towards the end of the demo, I should say, this morning. And depending on time, we hope to have a bit of a Q&A session. So Sinéad, if you want to take it from there, and off you go.
Cheers, Andrew. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. Guys, thanks for joining today. So initially, we're just going to look at what does a strong chart of accounts look like. It's not something that, people tend to think heavily about, but sometimes it's actually needed to get it right. So I suppose we believe there's kind of 6 elements to what a strong chart of accounts looks like. Number 1 being resilient. Is the chart of accounts resilient and flexible enough to meet the needs of the reporting requirements across the business? So as finance people, we tend to be focused in on the chart of accounts and only we know what it is, but it tends to have to meet the reporting requirements of so many non-finance and other business users across the organization. So is it flexible enough? Does it have all the requirements to meet those reporting element? Scalable. Does it have room to grow? I know a lot of our customers that are coming in, they're coming onto the product because their business is growing. And when we're first onboarding, we're looking at, what's the potential growth like in this chart of accounts? We have to factor that in when we're looking at designing a chart of accounts with our customers. Harmonious. That's a nice word, but it just is it consistent in ordering and across your group companies? Does it make sense? Does it gel? I know as a product, for the consolidation, we have a mandatory harmonious structure from the category and subcategory. Now the GL account level can be different, and we're going to take a look at that a little bit later. But is it harmonious? Does it actually make sense across the organization? Does the numbering and ordering and stuff make sense? And in the right order as your P&L and balance sheet structure. Maintainable. This is the key one, because sometimes as when we're a small business and we're scaling up, everyone kind of has a free for all. It's like, who's responsible for what? Can anyone just add a GL account? So who is responsible for the chart of accounts in your business and organization? Compliant. Does your chart of accounts meet your regulatory reporting requirements? Sometimes customers come in as well and they're just focused on the day-to-day operational stuff, and then comes statutory time or comes regulatory reporting time, they're like, oh, loads of manual work. to get to where I need to get to now. But if we factor all this in, you know, a lot more is achievable if we're thinking of a more wide scope of reporting requirements or the end goal. And understood, does the chart of accounts make sense and known within the business? Some, you know, we see customers coming in and they're adopting any chart of accounts. It's actually not attributable to their business. So does it make sense to finance? And is it easy to understand for the non-finance user as well? It's actually an important element as well. So is it understood? So these are indicators that your chart of accounts needs rethinking. If you're finding yourself doing any of these, it's probably, you know, a good idea to start thinking about, you know, potential changes. If you're struggling to meet the reporting requirements across multiple stakeholders in the business, department managers, budget holders, senior management, and at board level, you know, a good solid system should be able to produce all of this with the right code and structure in place, and be able to, you know, efficiently automate an awful lot of the reporting requirements across the entire business, and not just from a finance perspective. People in the business struggle to identify where to post things and have consistent mispostings and reallocations every month end. Once again, you know, if you've non-finance users interacting with the product that you use, are you defaulting stuff? If, you know, employees are submitting expenses and, you know, they're claiming a travel ticket, you know, is it defaulted, or a train ticket, is it defaulted travel? Is it, you know, it's all of that kind of efficient, small but efficient stuff that you can implement. So if you're finding yourself doing a lot of that, you could potentially, you know, have room for improvement. So no space to add new codes or accounts, which in turn forces an unstructured, inconsistent ordering and chart of accounts. You know, when we've all seen a massive chart of accounts, you know, that's trying to do everything. It's trying to do regional reporting, departmental reporting, even project. I've seen like the same GL code replicated thousands of times to try and achieve that level of reporting. So, you know, that leaves very, you know, I suppose low room for error. And that whole scalability piece, that whole growth piece, it's very hard to try and have this huge monster chart of accounts and try leave room for growth in there and scaling. So, you know, we'll be looking at later as well some of the features that AIQ has, that you build it into your kind of BI, and it's less heaviness on the chart of accounts. You find yourself remapping month-end reports in Excel in order to produce month-end goal reporting. Absolute killer. Like, if, you know, you find yourself doing that, it's definitely a time to, you know, rethink, well, you know, what changes can I implement that, you know, I can just get my end goal reporting straight from a product. And the use of transactional information to produce management reporting. Once again, people, you know, different costs, the GL structures aren't right, so they're pulling transactional information and kind of combining them together to give them one cost result. Same with revenues if your structure isn't right in your coding. Manual production of regulatory reporting, as you're not able to systemize. You've kind of, you know, you have this big monster, but how do we re-architect to get another reporting requirement out of the product? So, as you say, if you're kind of finding yourself doing any of these, there's potential room for improvement. So we're going to look at must-dos and redesigning your chart of accounts to support a growing business. And these are just a little guide that we tend to, like, when we have new clients in, we're tending to, you know, ask them these questions, or hopefully they see the importance in these. So we're going to take a look at the first one. So gather the requirements. So gather and understand the reporting requirements from all stakeholders across the business. Like, there may be only, you know, a couple of departments that require reporting. Get them involved. Get them, you know, what would they like to see, and get them involved in understanding what they want out of by way of reporting. So software and system ability. This is a big one, because, you know, you could be using the system for a very long time, but not really understand what its capabilities are. Like, it could have been implemented years ago. You've just been continuing to do your own thing. So really understanding the architecture and what's possible from the system I'm using now? Like, can I do this? Asking that provider. So pick the right software that allows for powerful reporting, and obviously multidimensional if you have that, you know, added complexity and requirement in the business, and or understand your current system capabilities more. Just asking a simple question and you can really, you know, I suppose understand what's possible. Build and test. Now this is building a COA. It's funny because people just come automatically in and start building the chart of accounts. And this tends to be where people start. This tends to be the starting point. Oh, I'm just going to build it, without actually looking at steps 1 and 2. Like, I know the onboarding team here in AIQ tried to promote the steps 1 and 2, really understand what we can do and try and get, you know, gather up all your reporting requirements and have a look at that as we're building it out, because you could be potentially missing valuable information. You go straight in to build something and it's awful because you've put time into that, and then you send a report out and someone says, well, can I not have this, or can I not have that in that report? And if they had been part of the earlier conversation, we tend to get there quicker. So this is usually where people start, but we recommend to look at 1 and 2. So introduce and implement a new COA and coding structure and ensure the business is aware and involved. Okay. And use system capabilities to maintain where possible, and appoint someone responsible for COA maintenance. It's really, really key, and implement potential governance policy for the chart of accounts, depending on your size, the size of your organization or the structure. So we're going to look at them in a little bit more detail. Time check, it's 30 minutes past. I think we're good for time. So requirements gathering. When you look at the various levels of reporting across the business, like your operational management accounting, departmental budget holder, business unit reporting, all those kind of key reports that people are looking to achieve. Revenue reporting, products and item regulatory reporting is another one. And then the very, very high level board packs, the summary. So looking at everything, look at the various levels of reporting initially, and then ask the business, what are the current issues? What's the problem with this reporting? Like, it's manual, I'm preparing it in Excel. It's not giving me this, it's not giving me that. And look at the gaps really. What is needed in the future? Okay, and how do I need to build or carve up the data to achieve this? How do I need to structure the chart of accounts? My coding, which I know in AAQ we call it BI codes, the terminology and dimensions. What dimensions do I require? Do I need to set up an item or product listing that'll give me my reporting on kind of product sales? Or, you know, I know tech companies, the key line there is your reoccurring revenue line, different kind of products or services you offer. So it's kind of, how am I going to build that into my coding structure in order to be able to get it out and not have to manually prepare it. Software and system capabilities. So we've experienced many clients coming from entry-level systems having kind of limited department dimensions, was caused the chart of accounts to become large and confusing. So, you know, clients coming from zero, I think they've a couple of departments and Sage 50 and QuickBooks. So we look at those monster chart of accounts and we're kind of going, right, squash it right down to your key GL codes, and then we're going to kind of produce all that from dimensional reporting. And like that, so that's what we're working through with the customer. Chart of accounts structure capabilities, which is key to understand. Touched on this earlier, you know, in AIQ we have like category, the basic level of reporting on the chart of accounts is I can report by category, subcategory and GL code level, and that's across our entire reporting library. So it's understanding that is key also. Reporting layer capabilities as well, additional tagging mechanisms. And we're going to look at a screenshot in a minute on GL grouping and GL referencing. Coding selection logic, like ensuring that defaults are in place on GL code items, customers, suppliers for efficient auto selections. As I said, finance people tend to be comfortable with coding because they understand, they kind of own the finance system, it's their home, that's where they live. But when non-finance people or the business user interact, employees on expenses, try and set the defaults, try and help them through, and try and make the coding, you know, intuitive to the non-finance or business user. this is just a print screen of like the GL code level in AIQ, and you can see, you know, as I said, the category, subcategory, and GL code are the mandatory, I suppose, layers when designing the chart of accounts. So that's the basic structure. And as I said, our entire reporting can be reported at these 3 different levels. But you also, in the green boxes, you'll see the added flexibility. So you're looking at, you can link it to a parent code. You can add a GL reference. I've seen plenty of clients pop a different language in there to understand, and then linking it to a GL group. A lot of clients use this for statutory, linking a number of GL codes into one GL group, and for statutory reporting purposes, or yeah, for the not-for-profits, potentially SORP. So building and testing. Obviously use the gathered requirements to build drafts of improved COA, produce a list of scenarios, actually trial what you're doing every day, use cases. Initial testing should be carried out in a sandbox and testing environment. 100% key. It's always a part of our onboarding service that we provide a sandbox. We import your chart of accounts, we test. It's not, we import it again, we test. So you're getting that, you're getting that kind of risk assessed approach before starting. So constant review of gaps and currents. So like that, it's a continuous, you're getting to review it and you're filling in the gaps in the current chart of accounts to ensure you're covering all angles, and consistent review to ensure the chart of accounts is easy to understand, attributable to the business, and less complex than the current potential monster chart of accounts that you have in place. Introduce and implement. So depending of the magnitude of the changes required, there may be various approaches. Like I said, people might have the chart of accounts that they just need to add a GL grouping for statutory reporting. Or if we're assuming that you're starting with a whole new fresh chart of accounts, agree the cutoff point and the go live for the new COA. Prepare in advance the mapping of historical data that may be required for historical report. You don't want to be doing that when you're going live and trying to, you know, get your historical reporting, you know, into the system, while you're trying to, you know, understand, or maybe, you know, train or introduce a new chart of accounts. So avoid transactional history, move fast. 99% of the time we see that dimensional TBs are enough. If you're bringing your if your values in by a dimensional TB for historical reporting purposes, it's giving you the comparatives. And configure all system and default accounts to drive more automation and coding around automated prepayments, accruals, automatic VAT tagging, and Interco tagging also. And maintain, appoint the responsible person for maintaining the chart of accounts. Use system features where possible to help with the maintenance. We're going to take a look at a few of them that we would have in AIQ soon, and promote the chart of accounts education across like the organization. As I say, finance people are very comfortable, non-finance, but if they understand a little bit more and it's intuitive to the business and the organization, they'll tend to, you know, adopt that more. And keep users informed of the status of chart of accounts related initiative changes, and update definitions if you add a new dimension, how important it is for the coding of that dimension. So just the communication around the chart of accounts. Very quickly, we look at some key features that we have to help that in AIQ, particularly that help maintain and assist with your chart of accounts and your coding structures. So this is our newest feature, which has been well received. You can see here that it's the ability to add a GL code across an entire group. So we have the customers that can go from like a 2-entity group company to 100 entity group companies. You can see where the value of this will be. You can see that I'm adding a GL code 10002, and I have the selection of entities underneath in which I can set it up in. I can see my entity code, so I can see where I'm going to put it. I can see the entity name, and the functionality actually tells me whether that GL code already exists. So if I have that GL code in an entity, I know I don't need to push it there. And what's key with this particular one is the previous screen where you're seeing the mandatory category, subcategory, and all of the GL grouping and all of the additional flexible fields, that actually flows down with it. So maintaining that GL code at the very, very top level, and for it to be able to waterfall down through your entire group and bring all that other, key fields down with it has been really valuable to a lot of our clients. Centrally managed dimension and elements. So the product has the ability to only have to set up a dimension or element once. And once you've run the consolidation process, once again, it flows down through all the group companies. So you're getting to that, not have to, that automation piece. And then we see this in a lot of our reports. We have the ability to have consolidation GL categorization and subsidiary GL categorization. And this is key for like Interco elimination. So we can restructure the consolidation GL layer so that, automated cancel and consolidation elements will automatically, and other elements, whatever, whatever structure you require at that consolidation layer, we have the ability to have both structures and report on both structures from that group company. So hopefully that's given you an idea of some of those key features that we'd have in place to automate that. I think now I'm going to hand back over to Andrew to maybe go through some reporting.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sinead. Do you mind just stop sharing there for 1 second?
I will indeed, yeah. There you go.
Great, thanks. Right, so I'm just going to take you into the product very quickly and just kind of reiterate some of the points that Sinead has made. When you're in a particular entity within the product, you're looking at the GL here. So I'm looking at what we call our grid screens, and you can see here by filters I can drop between profit and loss, balance sheet very quickly, and just refresh the grid there. I've got a load of categories across the top, which I can filter into very quickly just by typing. And again, this just allows you to kind of have control very quickly as to what's going on. As Sinead shows you on the screen there, I can drill in and look at the setup of any particular GL code. So I've got my GL number, my account name. It's linked to a category and subcategory, and I can also default some other issues or other items around that. So I've given it a group here. It's linked to a commercial group. I can default a VAT code for any transaction against it. And I can also default a, what we call our business intelligence code as well. So how that looks then in the system, if we look at what we call our GL Explorer screen, this just gives me an overview on the filters on the top here. So I've looked at the trial balance, and I'm looking at our categories here on the left-hand side. So if I was to start drilling down into assets, I'll see my subcategories. And if I go again, I'm starting to look down at the actual GL codes that are hiding behind them. Okay, so that allows you just to group everything nice and cleanly. On the business intelligence side of it, I can go in, I can look at, say, property 1 in this, I can click apply filters, and I'm just looking at the numbers relevant to property 1 at the moment, and then over to property 2. Looking then at some of the reporting capabilities we have in the system, as you can see, we've a number of reports, custom reports, but within the GL reports, there's a number of variants of your typical reports, like your balance sheet, your general ledger, your P&Ls, and your trial balance at the bottom. Now, I've just taken some of these reports and marked them as standard. So I'm looking at this balance sheet one here first, and I can run it for the year 22 up to September. I can run it at a subcategory or a GL level. If I run it at a subcategory, my figures are presenting as is, but if I was going then run it at the GL level, you can see I'm getting a little bit more breakdown on that. If I go back to, say, the profit and loss one here by BI code, again, I've picked year 22. I've picked the last quarter there, so July, August, September. I'm looking at period amounts, and I've picked a number of analysis codes this time to report on. So if I run the report, what I'm getting is a total column, my breakdown of the 3 months, and on the left I'm getting my category, my subcategories, and my GL code structure. But what I'm also getting then is I can expand out these months and look at the breakdown by the analysis codes that's been recorded within the system. So I can very quickly start to see what's performing within each month. Okay. We also have some other tools available for reporting within the system. We have a no data link in the system, and that allows you to connect the databases to Excel or Power BI. And what you're getting is, if you pull out the general ledger accounts, you're getting all that GL structure pulling out into Excel. I can pull out my trial balance details, and then I can just build my reports using pivots, etc., off this data. But this data, unlike the reports that Sinead mentioned early on in the webinar, where you're pulling data out, you're reporting on it, this data is linked to AccountsIQ. So anytime you update a field in AccountsIQ and just hit refresh in these reports, you're getting the latest data from the database behind. As I said, that's Excel. We also have Power BI. We have a sample dashboard built here, looking 2018 and period amount and year-to-date amounts. And you can see it's broken down here by our subcategories and categories. And I can just quickly flick between it. So this is another real time saver. Once you get the structure right on your GL and your analysis coding, you can build these reports, these dashboards for the wider organization, and it can really kind of just take a lot of noise away from finance teams because they have all of the latest detail up to date within it. So that's just a quick spin through the product on reporting. One last thing that we do have, just to let you aware or know, that we do have bespoke reporting services as well. So a couple of our clients in particular sectors have very bespoke reporting that they need built for them and to embed it in product. So from that perspective, they would go in and we build the reports, we work with them, and then they'd have a custom report section within here where they'd have those reports built for them within it. So I think that's pretty much us done for today. Sinead, there is one question just
there is indeed
in
from
there,
David. Yeah.
Let me
Take
just
that one.
Stop sharing. So David's asking, AccountsIQ, does it have the letter codes have a default fund account able to override if required for ease of charity SORP accounting? Sinead?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, David. So as you can see, we can actually set defaults at all levels depending on your requirements. But like that, if your fund, for many of the charities that we've taken on, the funds tend to be built into the BI structure, and then you can link that BI to a GL code level so that it's prompted. But if you need to edit it, so it's not forced, it's just prompted. And if you need to change it, you can. That's absolutely no problem. And that kind of happens at customer level, supplier level. So wherever you're setting defaults within a system, it's just prompting. It's not forced. And not, and more often than not, that's the GL code that you need. That's I suppose the BI or the coding that you need, but it is changeable if needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I think we've about 140 odd charities using our system, and that they all have a SORP setup within it. So everyone is happy with those reporting outputs, and their auditors are happy as well, which is always the gold seal of approval to get from our system. No other questions there at the moment. Anyone has any questions, if you want to email them in to sales@accountsiq.com. Sinead and myself will come back to you over the next 24 hours on them. A copy of this recording will go out to everyone, along with Sinead's wonderful slide deck as well. So you'll have that to review your own chart of accounts maybe with. And lastly, from Sinead and myself, just thanks for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Cheers,
Take
guys.
care.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye-bye now.